All right, everybody. Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight, folks. Welcome to our new Student and Transition Services webinar with the Admissions Office. My name is Max. I'm one of our admissions staff members here at Mines. We're going to give folks a minute or two here to kind of trickle in and get acquainted here with Zoom before we start. But thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight as we work our way through April and get closer to that May 1st submission deadline. I'm seeing a lot of similar names, repeat names from the past couple webinars we've done on different things like housing and financial aid. So it's good to see folks back on again. But thanks for joining us tonight. We'll give folks just a minute here to get settled in. As we do that, to kind of give you a little bit of info on what we're going to cover tonight, tonight's webinar is all about really those big next steps. So all throughout this spring, we've kind of been covering different really important parts of the admission process and then the decision process. So that includes topics like financial aid, residence life, the admissions checklist, all of that sort of stuff. But tonight, we're kind of talking about that next chapter. We know that many of you joining us tonight have already made your decision to become an Oredigger this fall, which is awesome. We could not be more excited for you to join the family this fall. But that comes with its own set of new questions and information for you. So tonight's session is partnered with our new Student and Transition Services Office. You'll hear us call them NEST a lot, so you can start getting used to that one. Our guest tonight is Jess Kiefer. So she's going to talk all about what her office does and how it supports students, especially in the context of different programming that's out there coming up. So some of you might have heard phrases like launch or Oredigger Camp or orientation. And she's going to talk a little bit about what those mean for students and what you can potentially expect as a student going forward. So we'll have her do a presentation here for a couple minutes, kind of go through those essentials. But really tonight, we want to make sure that questions that you have about any of the stuff that we go over for you or anything that we might miss for you, make sure we answer those for you. So we've left the question and answer feature turned on this evening. If you have questions as we go through the presentation, and especially after, feel free to use that feature to ask us questions. I'll be moderating, so some of those we'll be able to answer live for you with Jess. But we also have about 4 or 5 of our admissions staff members in the background helping to answer questions. So if you need a link or you need more information from us, they'll also be there typing away, getting those answers to you. And of course, last but certainly not least, after tonight, we will be making sure a copy of this webinar is available for you. So we'll have it on our admissions channel. We'll put the link for that in a little bit later. One final note before I turn it over to Jess and her presentation. We know that there are a lot of questions that pop up this time of year. Again, we kind of went over all the different topics we had. And we know there's a lot of great questions you submitted ahead of tonight. Just as a reminder, tonight's conversation really is going to focus primarily on that core experience with new student transition services. So the orientation process, the welcome process, kind of that handoff. So questions you might have about important things like housing or financial aid or other things like that, those are all great questions, but they're a little bit beyond tonight's scope. So what I would encourage you to do is go check out our previous webinars we've done on those topics. And of course, check out our website, reach out to us if you have questions. But we won't have time to answer those live tonight. We want to make sure we get through all the stuff for NEST. But with all that being said, that is what we are here to do tonight. And again, I have the privilege of introducing you to Jess Kiefer, our Director of New Student and Transition Services. So Jess, take it away.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Kiefer. I'm the Director of New Student and Transition Services, as Max said. I have been on the Colorado School of Mines campus for almost 11 years now, which is wild. So I've seen a lot of transition myself on campus, and I'm really excited to talk to you tonight about everything that we're able to offer you and your student. Welcoming students to campus is like my very favorite thing in the world. So getting to talk to you tonight is super exciting for me. I am going to pull up my presentation really quick. All right. So here we go. I apologize to the admissions staff, and so I will apologize to you as well for how bright this presentation is. I thrive with color, so here we are. But welcome to our NEST. As Max said, NEST is short for New Student and Transition Services. So you will see this pop up consistently. Most organizations and offices on campus do refer to us as NEST, so we answer to both. what we're going to be talking about tonight. Just really quickly, I'll talk a little bit about my office, what our services are, what you can expect, and then of course I will answer your questions. So just to start off, a little bit about us. This is the staff at in NEST, in New Student and Transition Services. So obviously I'm here, I'm the director. I provide office support and supervision. I work on budget, which is super exciting. I also do our Oredigger Camp logistics, which actually is really exciting. Fall kickoff, and I also coordinate CSM 101. Nick in my office oversees launch orientation, so you may have already heard from him or interacted with him, depending on whether or not you have already registered for launch. He also does our transfer student support, our service project, and fall kickoff planning. DePaul Straub is our coordinator. He oversees student staff recruitment, training, and supervision, which, as you're going to see a little bit later, is a massive job for our office. He also does our print and web communications and social media, and then also assists us with Oredigger Camp. And then Begonia Ruiz and Deanna Torres are our finance pieces. They're usually more back of the house as they help support us. They're hugely important parts of our office, and you may interact with them on the clubs and organization side because they also support sale. But the biggest piece of our staffing, or the most important piece, the thing that I would really want you to walk away with, is our student staff. So who you have right in front of you now, this is our lead peer mentor team. Our lead peer mentor team oversees the majority of our programming. So a lot of the coordination that you see in our events are actually put on by our lead peer mentors. They also oversee a small group of peer mentors, which are students that run our orientation and first year seminar process. And they work really closely with our office. So they're really our point people and our kind of connection piece between you, or between us and your students. NEST does employ approximately 120 peer mentors, 15 launch leaders, and 150 camp counselors each year. So as you can see, student staffing is massive for us in our office. And that's because we really understand that one of the most important pieces of onboarding students is that connection to upper class students. I can speak to our incoming students all day long and have really good information to share, but they are going to much rather hear that from somebody who has been there and done that through their coursework. So we do have lots of student staff, which also means opportunities for your student to walk into these leadership roles on their own in the future. So what does our office do? We have 4 major components. We do some other smaller programming throughout the year, but the biggest pieces that we do are launch, Oredigger Camp, fall kickoff, and CSM 101. So launch, we'll talk about all of these programs a little bit more in depth. Launch, though, is our one-day student and family orientation. Oredigger Camp is an adventure, leadership, and team building event. Fall kickoff is our mandatory student-only orientation the weekend prior to classes. And CSM 101 is a course that they take during the fall, required letter-graded course taken by all first-year students. So let's move into launch. My hope is that you have already heard about this program. But again, this is our one-day program. It is open to our students and they're able to bring 2 guests. It is in person on the Mines campus, which we are thrilled about. We've had it online the past 2 years due to COVID, but we're back to in person on these dates in front of you. So June 17th, June 20th, June 24th, June 30th, July 6th, and then for transfer students, we have July 8th. For those of you who are unable to make it to campus on those days, we do have a virtual opportunity on June 27th. And then for those of you that also doesn't work, we will be recording one of the sessions and we will be able to send that out to you and also post it to our website. So no worries if you are going to be missing that. Obviously, we would really love to see you there, but it's not required. It's not going to harm you if you are not able to join in person. I know that this question did come through, but students do not register for themselves for classes at launch. And in fact, our incoming students do not register themselves for classes at all. Our registrar's office does register our students for their first semester. And then after that, students register themselves. So it literally is not going to impact you at all. What you will be missing is a lot of good information gathering, the ability to connect in person with some of your peers, as well as the ability to meet your academic advisor in person. But those are things, obviously, that if you're unable to make this, you're still able to make up. I do want to make sure that you are aware that there are going to be pre-orientation modules. We put them into our course management system called Canvas, and all students who have deposited will automatically be enrolled into that Canvas course. So once you've enrolled, you will have access, you'll be able to get into our Canvas site, and you'll see lots of different modules in there that you can learn about everything from the majors that we offer to some of the opportunities that we have to get involved on campus, to a checklist of things that you need to make sure that you're taking care of. So do make sure to check that out. That will be opening as of May 2nd. Our next event is Oredigger Camp. I also hope that you have heard of Oredigger Camp by now, but Oredigger Camp is our 2.5-day adventure experience. Most of our sessions are going to be in Snow Mountain Ranch this year, which is in Granby, Colorado. We're really excited to be able to go back to the mountains for Oredigger Camp. We had to make adjustments over the past 2 years, but we are going back to our home in the mountains. We are also offering for the first time an opportunity to do an Oredigger Camp abroad, and that will be in Peru this year. So we do have 3 sessions for the Colorado camps, July 11th through 13th, July 13th through 15th, and August 16th through 18th. I do want to point out that that last camp, that August 16th through 18th camp, is going to be for theme learning community students only. So students who apply and are accepted and then accept their spot in a theme learning community will be going to that 3rd camp. If you are not interested in a theme learning community, but you want to go to a Colorado camp, you'd be applying for one of those first 2 in July. The spots for Oredigger Camp in Colorado have not yet opened. We will go through those dates in a little bit. Oredigger Camp abroad in Peru is open. I wanted to talk really quickly about cost because I know that this came up as a question. There is no out-of-pocket cost associated with attending the Colorado camp. It is part of your orientation fee if you choose to go. The only additional cost there would be the cost of coming to campus. And then if you are from out of state and you need to stay in housing the night before one of those first 2 camps, we are able to accommodate that in one of our residence halls, but there would be a $45 fee for that. Other than that, everything is included for our Colorado camps. That includes lodging, food, linens, which include bedding and towels, all of the activities that we do, the buses, all of their swag, everything that they get at camp is all included. For the Oredigger Camp abroad, there is a fee for that. The cost of that trip between August 16th and 13th, or sorry, 6th through 13th is $1,000. That is a prorated cost. Generally, I believe it's at $1,500 for students to attend, but we are contributing a portion of the cost to help lower that a little bit. So it would be the cost of the trip, which is $1,000 plus your cost to fly to and from Lima. But it is still a very cool opportunity. All Oredigger camps, no matter which one that you go to, provides a vertical connection. And what we mean by that is you will get to know your peers that are your age coming in as new first-year students, but you will also get to know upper class students as well as faculty and staff. For the Colorado camps in particular, the president does attend all 3 of those camps. It's one of his favorite things to do. So you'll have the opportunity to hang out with him. You'll probably catch him in the Gaga ball pit. But we want you to really get ingrained into the community. It also encourages teamwork, self-reflection, and growth. And it includes adventure programming, engineering challenges, and a lot more. It's a good time. Fall kickoff is the weekend prior to classes starting, so August 18th through 21st. This is a mandatory experience for all of our students, except for the evening entertainment options. And there are lots of those. We're not going to make you have fun, but we're hoping that you do. The full schedule of fall kickoff will be posted within 3 or 4 weeks prior to the event on our website. And there will also be an app that you'll be able to download for that. But I wanted to run through some of the big things for you, just so you're aware of what that looks like. So we will have 2 fall kickoff check-ins, and it depends on when you're moving in. If you are moving in that Monday, because you are part of a theme learning community, you will have your fall kickoff check-in that Monday from between 2 and 5 p.m. It's drop-in. You don't have to be there at a specific time, anytime between 2 and 5. For everyone else that's moving in on August 18th, we have fall kickoff open check-in almost all day between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. Just so you know why fall kickoff check-in is important is a few different reasons. Number one, we just want to make sure that you're here. Number two, that's how you get your group assignment. So you're going to be with a certain group the entire weekend. You'll get to know those people really well. You will be guided by 2 upper class peer mentors. They're the same thing as orientation leaders, but we call them peer mentors. You're also going to get your handy dandy hard hat. So this year's hard hat for this last fall was silver. As you can see, there's a different hard hat color every single year. So you will have a specific hard hat for your year coming in. I'm not sharing what it is yet. And you'll get t-shirts and lots of other fun things. So make sure that you are attempting to check in there. At 4 p.m. on the 18th is convocation. So I want to explain really quick what convocation is, because we usually get questions about that. But that is a ceremony that is offered by the institution. It is led by our president. We usually have board of trustee members there, lots of different representatives from athletics and from academic affairs, really wanting to welcome your student to campus. We see it as a bookend to commencement. So convocation, we're welcoming you. At commencement, we're congratulating you. So it is a bookend ceremony. Families are invited to convocation if you're interested. You are not required, but if you want to go, you're more than welcome. Immediately following convocation will be a family barbecue. Again, you are more than welcome. It's not required, but we would love to have you. You will need tickets for convocation. That's really so we can monitor the number of seats that we're filling up in our arena. There's no cost associated with them. They are free, but we do need you to check in and get those tickets. Ticket information for convocation will be posted to our website in June, and you will also get information via email about that as well. So make sure that you are looking forward to that. This is another thing that I want to be clear on. As of 7 p.m. on the 18th, our students are saying goodbye to their family. Everything after that is student only. Our parent and family events end with the family barbecue. So make sure you're saying goodbye, give them some really good hugs. And after that, it is going to be students having a good time and getting to know each other for the rest of the weekend. August 19th, the morning of the 19th, is going to be our M climb. I hope that you've heard of that. It's one of our biggest traditions. It's so exciting. All of our students get to carry their 10-pound rock from home, walk up to the top of Mount Zion and place it in our M, which is a huge tradition. And then, you know, every day as you're walking to classes, you can look up to that M and remember that day that you started your journey as an Oredigger. We'll also have our keynote address that day. Then on the 20th, we'll have information sessions as well as transfer student sessions. And then on the 21st, we have a class photo as well as a service project. All of our students will be completing a service project on the same day, which is really exciting. And then finally, we have CSM 101. Again, CSM 101 is a half credit hour course. It meets 1 hour a week during the fall. Our lessons range from you know, everything from career exploration to registration to how to connect with faculty to emotional and physical wellness. It's really meant to acclimate our students to Minds, as well as providing a cohort of peers to, you know, have a safe place to ask questions of, and to, you know, not know everything and to kind of be in the same space together. That course is taught by a faculty or a staff mentor. We call them mentors, alongside 2 peer mentors. And that's a model we call a tripod. So the 3 of them co-teach the class, and that's really in order to provide a breadth of knowledge and experience to our students. Okay, so what to expect in important dates. Registration for launch is open now. You can navigate to our website and go to register for launch if you have not already. Space in each session is limited, though I'll let you know there's still plenty of spots available for all of our launch sessions. We're not close to filling up as of yet. Registration for Oredigger Camp abroad, so the Oredigger Camp in Peru, is open now. Again, you're able to navigate to that through our website. Space is limited for that as well. Last time I checked, I believe we have about 8 spots left out of the 20 students that are going to Peru for that trip. Registration for Oredigger Camp sessions 1 and 2 open on Monday, May 2nd at 8 a.m. This is important because those 2 camps will fill up rather quickly. I don't want to say that, you know, it will be within a few hours or a few days. There's no way for me to really tell. But I will say that if you're interested in going to one of those first 2 Oredigger Camp sessions, I would try to register for that as soon as possible after it opens. Oredigger Camp 3, as I mentioned earlier, is for theme learning community students only. So that's tied to our housing application. I know that many of you may have gone to our Residence Life presentation that happened a few weeks ago, but housing applications are open now. Students must apply for a theme learning community within that application by May 2nd. Students will receive notification of whether or not they have been accepted into that theme learning community on May 15th. At that point, you will be automatically registered to go to Camp 3. There's nothing additional that you would have to do. A couple of pieces of information. Please read the monthly newsletter sent out by admissions. There's so much good and important information in there. My office sends updates through that newsletter every single month. So make sure that you're reading those to stay on top of them. Please also claim your Minds email address if you have not already, and check that regularly. We do our best to send email to, you know, any email address that we have on file for our students up until the first day of classes. But Minds email address is our students' official email address once they've claimed it. So once that happens, we will definitely be sending information there. So please make sure that you're checking that email address just to make sure that you're not missing anything. And then also, never forget, please remember to bring a 10-pound rock from home for the M climb. Do not try to sneak it out of the president's house's gardens. He will keep an eye on you for the first few days of fall kickoff. And also plan to wear clothes and shoes that you don't mind getting wet or covered in whitewash. We have students that end up a little bit upset every year because they weren't necessarily planning well. Closed-toed shoes, and then clothes and shoes that you don't mind getting wet or covered in whitewash. Whitewash is basically the paint that we dump on the M. But I'm so excited to meet you. We all are. Our students, I will tell you, our student leaders have been in and out of my office talking about how excited they are for this year that's coming up and how thrilled they are to meet you all. But that's pretty much it. So I will be taking questions. If you do have questions that you want to email, you can send them to the Nest email here. And then this is our website, mines.edu/new student transition services. We also have a TikTok and an Instagram if you'd like to follow along. But that's what I got for you. So what questions do you have for me?
Awesome. Thank you, Jess. I know they have quite a few. I've been watching them come in. One thing I want to mention real quick, because you had a really good point in there about watching your email. And I saw a couple questions from students saying like, oh, how do I find it? Or, I haven't seen any emails come in there recently. You learn instructions on how to claim your email address in your applicant portal in that Oredigger checklist. So that's actually a really good resource to access a lot of the stuff that we just talked about in the presentation. There's links talking about registering for Oredigger Camp and for launch in there, as well as information on getting that email address. So I saw it go by in chat. I think someone answered it, but just wanted to make sure. And you'll see more emails in there starting in May as we get past decision day. But just first question for you, just from like the experience size, you had mentioned like there's group sessions or there's groups that you get to be a part of through things like launch and Oredigger Camp and fall kickoff. Great question from a student was how many people are in your group in those different experiences, and are bigger, smaller? How easy is it to connect with folks?
That's a really good question. So the groups are really, okay, there's a few different types of groups. Your main group is going to be the group that you meet during fall kickoff. That is also going to be the same group of people that you have CSM 101 with. So your group that you were with during fall kickoff and CSM 101 is generally going to be anywhere between 20 to 25 students. If you attend fall kickoff, or sorry, if you attend Oredigger Camp, you will be in a smaller group. It's going to be 10 students to a group with 2 camp counselors. And then for launch, we don't really have groups, but we do have our students that will be in conversation sessions. And for that, it really depends on how many total number of people that we have attending launch. But for the most part, we're hoping to have no more than 25 or 30.
Awesome. So definitely manageable size groups. For context, for anyone who's not super familiar, those are even smaller than like average class sizes for first year students, which at Mines aren't exactly big, but that's still a super approachable group. So awesome. Question about Oredigger Camp. Because we know that launch is kind of like the functional kind of like information and launch literally. Do you have an idea off the top of your head how many of the incoming first year students attend Oredigger Camp in a typical year? I know last year and the year before we're kind of all over the place with COVID, but maybe before that, or what we're hoping to see again.
Yeah, so generally we have about, participation has gone up every year since we've started to do it. Last year was actually, even though it was COVID, happened to be our biggest number. Last year we had about 70% participation. Normally I would say we're anywhere between 50 to 70, definitely not 100%. So I don't want anyone who can't go or doesn't get into a camp to feel bad. It is not 100% participation. And there are plenty of students that can't or don't want to for several reasons. I would say that, you've got plenty of opportunities if you can't make it to camp to connect with other students as well.
Absolutely. I think that's the cool part about it is it's a great complement. But like you mentioned, there's so many ways that they're going to get so much of that information and ways to connect that it looks different for everybody. I guess somewhat related question to that, for a student who's maybe kind of on the fence about like signing up for Oredigger Camp specifically, because I know like we've worked with programs like this and it sounds awesome, but I think back to like high school me who was kind of like not sold on the idea of programming like this or things like that. If they were on the fence, not sure, not committed, but interested enough to think about it, what advice would you give them if they're looking at it like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. What I will say is that there's going to be a student at Mines that's like you, and lots of them, to be honest. So if you went to something like Oredigger Camp, I know that it seems very overwhelming, but we have so many students that are attending that are introverts or that are not huge into athletics or not huge into being loud and rambunctious, and they're quieter. We do try to blend the group so that there's plenty of introverts and extroverts that are together. But what I will say is most people go and end up being pleasantly surprised, because we've had many students that were forced to go by family members and weren't really into it. And then by the end of it, they had the best time of their lives. So that being said, it still isn't for everyone. I would never say, I would never want to force somebody to go, but I do think that you do find your place for sure.
And I think a lot of us on our team who also work with current students, just like your team, can attest to the fact that there is a surprisingly good mix and balance of introverts, extroverts, ambiverts, anyone in the middle kind of at Minds, which is, I think, pretty cool. It's maybe not what you would stereotypically expect, but I think it's really cool because that community is there for folks. Related kind of to that, I'm trying to remember if this was related to Oredigger Camp or to fall kickoff, but we had a question from a student who was wondering more about the service project you mentioned, like what those can look like, what they can expect, cool opportunities there.
Yeah, that's another really great question. We're really excited about the service project. So we've done a service project for, I believe, 6 years now. And they have always been on one day where we send all, 13 to 1400 students out on one day into our community, obviously until the last couple of years. But we're so excited to be bringing it back to a one-day program again this year. It's just so cool to see all of our students out and about doing good work. So we do send you a questionnaire prior to coming so we can understand your level of ability, what your desires are, so we can make sure that we're pairing you with or matching you with a project that is going to be okay for you. So it could be anything from cleaning trash up along the creek, which our creek is stunning, so you would be happy to help with that, to helping somebody with their garden, weed their garden, to helping someone paint a fence, to making dog toys for us to donate to our local shelter. So there are both active things that you can participate in and then things that are not as active. And we definitely try to make that clear. Along those lines, and this has to do with any of our programs, or honestly, as well as anything that we have at Minds, please do let us know if there's any type of accommodations that we can make for you that will make your experience better or more comfortable or would help with your level of abilities. We want everyone to participate. And so whatever we can do to make that happen for you, please let us know.
Excellent. And I think that variety you mentioned is huge, right? Because I think we're fortunate as a school, and students, you'll kind of see this as they go through in different ways, but we're not really a campus that does like the one size fits all model, because we know it's going to look different for everybody, which is awesome. Jumping back specifically to Oredigger Camp for a couple questions here. I know there was a question that I saw go by. I'm looking for it. I think it got dismissed, but it was, you had mentioned that like housing and other things are covered as part of the experience with that, like students getting here and going. For folks coming from out of state who are wondering about getting from DIA to Golden or up to where they need to go, are there resources that help with that, like shuttles or recommendations you have for them?
Yeah, so there is something called the Golden West Shuttle, which we like to refer to. Let me see if I can bring it up. But that is a reservation-based shuttle. Yes, it's Golden West Airport Shuttle. So you could go to goldenwestairportshuttle.com. You make a reservation and they will bring you to campus from the airport. There is also the light rail. The light rail is our public transportation. It goes from the airport to Golden. And then once you get to our Golden Center, there's a smaller bus that would take you to campus. I will warn you, while that is definitely a viable option, it takes a really long time. So you just want to make sure that you're kind of planning appropriately for that. We also have Uber and Lyft if that's something that you want to do. So there are various options for getting here.
No, for sure. That's good to know. And for the RTD from the airport to Golden, definitely agree. It's awesome. It does take a little bit longer, like Jess mentioned. But as students, once you're here, if you're doing something, not related to launch or Oredigger Camp, like once you're here, using RTD to get around is super nice. We've talked about that a lot in different sessions, but you all get those passes for free, which is pretty cool. As far as registration goes for camp, we had a question from somebody along the lines of they're wondering if they should register for camp 1 or 2, since they won't know if they're accepted into a themed learning community or TLC for those watching by May 2nd. And I guess they're looking for a little bit of guidance on maybe when, what, how, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's a hard one because I totally understand, not wanting to miss the boat if you don't get into a theme learning community. I would say go ahead and register for camps 1 or 2 if you're really wanting to make sure that you're going to get in and you're not sure about your if you're going to get into that theme learning community. I will say though, if you do that and then you find out that you are accepted into a theme learning community and you're going to accept that placement, please let us know as soon as possible so that we can drop your registration from camp 1 or 2 and then bring someone else into that spot. The longer we wait, the less opportunity there is for other people to be able to take those spots. So we do really want to clear them as soon as possible.
Really good point. And a related question I have for you, kind of that I think it might be along the lines of a question a student had too. As those camps fill up and you get demand for it, there's not a situation, for example, in which like a student, I think there are waiting lists for them, but it's not like you would apply and not know immediately that you're on the wait list or you're in, right? Like you're
No,
going to know once you register which one you are.
Yep, exactly. It'll tell you if there's no space, but you can be added to a wait list, or if you're in, you'll get a confirmation email.
Excellent, excellent. Jumping forward a little bit to talk about a little bit more of the fall kickoff stuff. I know that there have been a lot of questions I've seen going by from folks about different clubs and activities and everything like that, which is awesome. We don't have, just for context, folks, we don't have a ton of info on the specific clubs. Like I saw some great questions about joining hockey clubs or teams or things like that. We specifically don't have the info on that tonight. A lot of the info on that will be on the website, but a related event that happens around fall kickoff, I know that's a lot of fun for students, is celebration of mines. And I guess if you've got a little bit of time, because I know it's not fully in your wheelhouse, so to speak, but talking about how they learn about that at fall kickoff and what it looks like and how their mentors kind of guide them through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Celebration of Mines is such a fun event. And if I can ask you to do one thing, please go to that event, regardless of whether or not you're planning on joining a club or an organization on campus. It's just so fun to go and be a part of. But that's going to be the first Friday of classes starting. So that will be Friday, August 26th this year in the late afternoon. But it is just hundreds of tables set up with all of our clubs and organizations, passing out a lot of like fun stuff, candy, some of their gear, branded gear. There's free food there. We usually have food trucks, ice cream, all kinds of fun things, lots of music playing. It's just a really good time to kind of go wander around and see what's available to you.
It is a ton of fun. Our staff, I know a lot of folks who are currently at Mines love going to it too. It's just like a huge carnival atmosphere, like Jess mentioned. It's so much fun. One thing I guess that relates to all three of the programs, because they take different forms, of course, but is there something that you and your team routinely see from students as far as, gosh, I wish, like once they get there, like, I wish I was better prepared for X, Y, or Z, or they thought about things ahead of time. I know a lot of what we do with these three programs is really, hey, just get here and we're going to teach you the rest. But is there stuff going into those programs that you would really recommend students do or think about or plan for?
Yeah, I would say for launch, it's a lot of information. So come with your, notebook and something to write with, because there's going to be a lot that is covered. And because it's a lot that is covered, we understand how it works. We know that can be overwhelming. We know sometimes, you're going to hear something and it's going to immediately leave your brain. That's why we ask you to bring something to take notes with. For both Oredigger Camp and Fall Kickoff, my piece of advice would be, do understand that it's a really busy time and you're allowed to take breaks. So we have students every year that are like, I didn't realize how busy I would be and I'm so exhausted now. we don't want you to be exhausted. We want you to have a good time. So you are allowed to, kind of take a breather when you need to. There are certain aspects of both that are required just so that you know what's going on and what's happening. But we also don't want you to, pass out. So make sure that you're advocating yourself, letting your group leaders know, like, hey, I'm going to take 10, whatever that is, or at least prep yourself ahead of time to know that it's just going to be a busy time. Another thing, and this is just the mom in me, so I apologize. Hydrate and sunscreen, please, with all of our outdoor events, especially if you're not from Colorado. It is so bright and so dry during the summer. And every year at Oredigger Camp, we have somebody who, it didn't realize that just how hot and dry it was going to be, and they weren't properly hydrated, so they might have some altitude sickness. Just make sure that you're monitoring that. But those are really our big things.
Definitely agree on all those, and the last ones especially, plus the elevation. If you're like me and you're coming from back east and you grew up at like 600 feet, Golden's at almost 6,000. So that can take it out of you too. So pace yourself. It's hugely important. Another question I saw about kind of logistics for some of the programming. The student is really interested in the different options that are available, but they're wondering about students who are going through the challenge program and the dates that it runs for. I think it's like June 26th through July 22nd. They're wondering if they're still able to participate in these sort of events and programs.
That's such a good question. I'm so excited. Welcome to Challenge students. So Challenge is actually going to Oredigger Camp 2 as a cohort together. So Challenge students don't need to do anything. We will automatically register them for that second Oredigger Camp. The only question I think about participation in something would be launch. We're trying to figure out if our challenge students can go to the launch that happens the Friday right before you all move in. But we are working with MEP on that. So just work with Kayla and Stephanie and MEP, and they will keep you up to date on that information.
Excellent. Yeah, and I think that's super important to know, because we have, for those of you who maybe don't have a ton of context, we have some great programs for students, whether it's challenge or pathways or what have you, to help students get here in different capacities that maybe aren't straight out of high school or different programs. And we want to make sure we're being as inclusive as possible, which is super great in my book. Question for parents now, actually, specifically, or the parent audience. I know you had a really good point about when we get here, especially for fall kickoff, there's some great shared programming, and then it's kind of time to say goodbye and take that next step into college life. And that's a lot of, I know what a lot of families and folks who are kind of adjusting to college life spend a lot of, last part of senior year and summer year leading into, is kind of that transition. What advice do you have for parents as far as how to be a good partner in this process over the summer as they get ready and help those students kind of take ownership over things?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so hard. I'm a parent as well, not of a college student yet, but I totally understand how hard that is to care so much, and also knowing that you need to, let go a little bit. I would say just checking in with them every now and again to, make sure that they know what deadlines are coming up, that they've been checking their email, that kind of thing. Not to, obviously you're not nagging, but, students can get busy and they're probably working over the summer. They have other things going on. So just helping them remember that. I would also say allowing them to be adults that are going to college and, taking on those responsibilities on their own, but at the same time, being open and honest with them about what your feelings are too, because it is tough for you as well, and we understand that. I would say maintaining consistent communication with them, especially after they've moved in, because even if they're not reaching out, they miss you. So just making sure that you're checking in, and just being supportive. Their transition, as much as we do for our students, it's hard, especially if it's the first time they're leaving home. So I would just say making sure that you're there for them and checking in. Yeah, I don't know. It's difficult. I get it.
Totally agree. We know it's a challenging process too, because it's very different. And even if it's it's not your first student through college, it doesn't necessarily get easier. I would totally agree with everything there. And then like not a shameless plug, but like a good thing to know, like there's a ton of support in the Minds parent, family, and like guardian community. Like our office specifically has run Facebook groups for incoming parents and relatives of students. Like this year, it's the Minds 2026 parents and families. There's previous groups. There's parent and family weekend. There's so many great ways that you can still be a part of this experience. It's just, that transition into they're now a full adult and doing some awesome stuff. So totally agree on that. One thing real quick.
As a quick plug,
yeah,
really quick, Max,
yeah.
just so parents are aware, there is a session during launch that's specifically for parents to help give them kind of more of that kind of advice and support, help them think through or problem solve early on some of the things that may come up with your students, things like homesickness, first bad grades, anything like that, as well as meeting some of our upper administration. So if you haven't yet, making sure that you're registering for launch, because that will help as well.
Absolutely. No, that's super, super helpful to know for them. Just one quick housekeeping note, because I'm seeing lots of really good questions go by. And I know we've talked a little bit about, when people will do move-in day and, things like that, as far as depending on which session they're in. For a lot of the questions that I'm seeing go by specifically about theme learning communities, living learning communities, move-in days, all this stuff. I know we're getting answers in there from our folks, but I would please ask those of you who are asking those questions, please do your due diligence and reach out to Residence Life directly. We'll put their email address and phone number in the chat for you so you can copy it down. But they're the experts and professionals in there. And we've talked about a couple things they're doing tonight, but for really specific stuff on what qualifies and dates and just double check, go to their website, go to their email address, give them a call, because they're the ones who are definitely going to know the most about that going forward. And again, like we talked about at the beginning, a couple of weeks ago, we did an hour-long webinar just like this with Dr. Mary Elliott, who's the Residence Life Director. We went through a lot of that stuff. So definitely check that one out too if you weren't able to make it. But just want to make sure that folks get the information that they need directly from the source on some of the more specific stuff. Just another question for you. I think that falls a little bit farther down the road, but I know we get a decent number of students interested in every year. You've talked a lot about how the peer leaders and peer mentors kind of shape into this experience for students when they're coming in and kind of transitioning in. For students who are, interested in that potentially farther down the road, how do they go about that process with you, and what can you recommend to them? I know they're brand new members of the Minds community at this point, so they still have time, but if they're interested, what would you say to them?
Yeah. So the first thing that I want you to know is that we take all kinds of students. So a lot of times people think like, oh, you're only going to want the most outgoing, most gregarious students. It's not true. Because our student population is so unique and varied, we try to hire as many different kinds of students for our leadership positions as well. So that being said, I would also get to know your own peer mentors. You'll have 2 peer mentors that are going to be guiding you through your fall kickoff and your CSM 101 classes. So just get to know them really well. Ask them lots of questions about what it's like, what the position is like, what and how to get involved. Applications for the peer mentor position generally open in November of each year. We have something, you're going to learn about this once you get to campus, but we have something called the Daily Blast, and it's a daily newsletter that you get with lots of information. And we put the application in the Daily Blast, but also I'm sure it will be mentioned in your CSM 101 class as well when that application opens. And you can apply as a first-year student because your actual job would start when you're a sophomore and you would help guide those new first-year students. So yeah, absolutely. We would love to see you apply.
Excellent. Excellent. I think it's important to talk about that because we work in similar capacities as in admissions and in Nest as far as with students and that whole experience. And anytime that we hear from any of you who are joining the family that you're super interested in that, we love that because you get to pass it along to the next group, right? If you enjoyed your experience enough, getting to work with a team like the one that Jess and Nick and DePaul get to work with and the ones we get to work with is awesome. Couple more questions coming in, kind of like functional stuff again about the programming. Student is wondering, I believe, with launch, if they do launch on campus, are they able to see any of the residence hall rooms and what that experience is like?
Yeah, so we don't have that scheduled. We don't have residence hall tours scheduled as a part of the day. I know though that Residence Life does hold residence hall tours. So you could definitely contact Residence Life and see if you're able to set something up for the same day while you're here on campus.
For sure. And I know we've gotten a lot of questions about that, folks. We've been able to bring a lot of programming back, which we're really happy about. Everything that we've talked about tonight. In our own office, we brought back a lot of in-person tours that we weren't able to do when COVID started. Some of the housing stuff has been a little bit slower to adjust because those are living communities with a lot of people in them. And we want to be careful and make sure we're not disrupting our students' lives too much. So we're still working our way back close to full capacity, but there definitely will be opportunities for you to look at those online and see stuff ahead of time and make sure you're good, down to like dimensions in the room. Mary mentioned that they share those. So we'll make sure you got all the stuff you need. There was also mention, I think it was related to launch, about a Canvas website for course information. Student was wondering about that, and I think kind of related to that, if they need to do anything ahead of time or basically do any homework going into it.
Yes, do all the homework related to it. No, there's no homework. We posted on Canvas for two reasons. Number one, we're hoping to answer some of your questions early before you come for launch. And then we also want something that you can refer back to. So like I mentioned earlier, we know it's a lot of information all at once. We don't expect you to retain it. And so that way you can refer back to it and say, oh, I remember I read about that, or I watched this video, and you can go back and have it there. But we don't require you to finish anything prior to attending launch.
Excellent. Like we mentioned, it's a lot of us prepping you for stuff. So we will make sure that you get to where you need to be. Just last major question I have for you, because I know we've seen a lot go by and we want to be respectful of everyone's time. Knowing that tonight's audience is mostly students who have made their decisions, but some who are still, maybe thinking or weighing options. We've heard about some awesome programming tonight that these students will be able to take advantage of. What piece of advice or recommendation would you give to a student who's, still weighing their options, thinking about, is the Mines community correct for us, that sort of stuff? So.
Yes. So, this is it's a big decision. So I don't want to downplay that at all. It's important that you find a place that you're happy with, that you feel like is your fit. At the same time, there's something so special about our community. I had no idea until I started working here just how amazing and special it is. It's a very tight knit. There's so much support, especially among our student body. Our students love to support each other in their academic endeavors, and there's so much for them to participate in outside of class. It's just a really neat place, and you cannot beat Golden, Colorado. You just can't. So while I know that it's a tough choice, and we understand whatever that choice is, this is just such an excellent place, and you're gonna have so much fun during all of your orientation stuff. So.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's a tremendous experience. So, well, folks, that was a ton to go through in just under an hour. I think we went through about 85 questions, not including the time with presentations. So huge thank you to Jessica Kiefer from our new Student and Transition Services office for joining us tonight. As we kind of close out here, I just want to do a couple housekeeping notes for folks about stuff coming up and echoing some of the things we talked about tonight, but making sure everyone's in the loop. Today is April 14th. So we are getting pretty close to May 1st. A lot of you are probably familiar with that date somewhere in some context, but that is National College Decision Day. So that is the day that we ask students to make their decision if they're coming to Mines. And that's a date a lot of schools follow. So for those of you who are watching, who are maybe still kind of weighing those options, you still have time, but make sure you keep that date in mind as you move forward. And then, of course, all the big stuff we talked about tonight, specifically related to things like launch registration, Oredigger Camp, fall kickoff, and then all of the various other things that you're going to want to do over the summer and as we get through the fall. We keep all of that in your incoming Oredigger checklist. So at this point, some of you might be familiar with lots of different services and things on campus. Some of you might have been in Trailhead already. Some of you might have looked at the housing app. Where you're going to find that information is back at the beginning. So the same place that you got your decision letter from us, the same place that you put your application in for us, that's where you're going to find that checklist. So we know there's a lot of stuff that's about to come your way, start peppering you with information on, those next steps and stuff from mine specifically, but make sure you're taking time to check in and check that Oredigger checklist to make sure you're on track. Same thing with those email addresses. We will still be emailing stuff to you, which some of you might have been getting from your personal Google accounts or Outlook accounts. But again, like Jess mentioned, checking that Mines email account and making sure you're good there. And if you want to learn more, you can learn more on our mines.edu site about how to claim that. But we know it's a lot coming up. We know there are other questions that must be floating around out there. That's why our offices exist. So if you do have questions after today, of course, you can reach out to us at admissions@mines.edu. And I think one of our staff members will put our phone number and contact info in there. And then we'll also put Nest's info in there for you. Because the way it works for teams like ours on campuses like ours, we know that we don't have the answer to every question, parking, for example, or residence life, but we do know the folks who can get you that answer to that question. So if you're ever not sure or you're not sure where to start, feel free to reach out. We can always get those questions answered for you. And again, for those of you who might have joined a little bit later from our beginning session this evening, we have recorded tonight's presentation. So if you want to go back and watch that after today, reference some of the stuff about different programs, that will be posted on our YouTube channel by this weekend for you to reference. But with all that being said, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. Huge thank you to the admissions staff in the background who helped answer all those questions. Of course, huge thank you again to Jessica Kiefer from New Student Transition Services for joining us. And of course, to all of you for giving up close to an hour of a weeknight at a very, very busy time. So until we see you again, folks, thanks for joining us. And otherwise, have a wonderful rest of your evening. We'll see you soon.